Two guys either side of 50 with one dream to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 10. Count them on your fingers. Episode 10 of the Missing Links Golf Show. I'm Steve Hinks. I am joined by the emperor of accountability, that is Andy Walker. Andy Walker, episode 10. Welcome back.
Good evening, Mr. Hinks. How are you?
I am extremely well, very, very well. Feeling like I'm completely shot of that pesky virus that had been hanging around and interrupting our recording plans over the last few weeks. So good to be back, fighting fit and ready for episode 10. I'm shocked.
Yeah.
I'm amazed.
Yeah.
It's a big number.
And I'm looking forward to the Christmas break. To be honest with you, I'm just about done for the year. I've said to I don't know how many of my clients that I think I'm going to fall over the line this year. It's been one of those years that, yeah, lots of stuff has happened, all good, but yeah, just need to take some time to reflect, possibly play a little bit more golf.
Yeah.
Work on some of my swing changes that I've been given that I must admit I am struggling with a little bit after my Masters victory at the end of last month. I have now gone down the rabbit hole of trying to make some of those swing changes, and yeah, it's not easy.
Good grief.
Not easy at all.
Interesting to go back a step that you talk about feeling like you're falling over the line. A colleague of mine at work the other day said, I'm not falling over the line. In fact, I fell over weeks ago. I'm now being dragged towards the line by somebody else, and I can completely understand that feeling.
Well, I did message that to my cousin, and she came back to me and said, I think someone's going to have to push me over the line.
Yeah,
because I'm not going to make it.
Yeah,
So,
it feels a bit like that sometimes.
I think it's a common theme with we've come out of COVID and the whole schmozzle around COVID, and then we're sort of back to some sort of normality, if there is such a thing, and
There's not.
it just hasn't stopped.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. And in some ways, we always talk about the time speeding up and the years going by faster, but I just don't think they're getting any easier.
What does that mean? If they go by faster, can you fit less in? Like,
feels that way.
And are we trying to fit more in?
It feels that way too.
To less time. Like,
it feels that way. Yeah. But anyway, look, what can we do? One day at a time, ladies and gentlemen, one day at a time. It's a little bit like golf. You can only hit every shot once.
Correct.
And you can only hit the shot that's in front of you. So a bit like that with life, one day at a time. That's getting deep very early in this episode.
It is.
Mr. Walker,
well,
I'm not sure
we did go down the mental aspect last week. I thought maybe this week might be a little bit lighter, but maybe not.
Look, I don't think so. I don't think any of them ever are. They all build on each other. And I did, like, one of the things I've got on the list, I did want to kind of just recap a little bit on the mental episode that we talked about last week, because listening back to it, there was a point there where I wouldn't say we had a disagreement. I wouldn't use words that was that strong, but I'm not sure that we saw completely eye to eye around some of the discussion about the nature of thought. And what happens when you're standing over a shot and you get a negative thought creep in, and how you deal with that. So
you don't replace a positive thought with a
you kind of do
a negative thought, but you kind of do. But you still got to think it and just let it be thunk.
Yeah, let it be thunk. You kind of do replace it with a positive thought, but I think the key message is that you don't get upset with yourself for having had the negative thought in the first place, and you don't fixate on the negative thought.
Yeah. As my 6-year-old daughter says, you get what you get, and you don't get upset.
It's kind of true. That is actually very true on the golf course. You do. Albeit I have seen some people, and I have been that person that gets upset from time to time.
Yes.
What do you mean? Well. I didn't ask for a shank for Christmas.
No, definitely didn't. Or a snap hook.
No, but bookmark both of those terms. They'll come up shortly.
Yes.
So anyway, we will talk a bit about that, because I did have, as talked about at the end of the last episode, I did have a competition round on the weekend. which in the not too distant future we will go through, and all of those topics that we just mentioned very quickly are going to raise their heads during that review. So stay tuned. But Andy Walker, we do like to kick off these episodes with listener feedback.
Yes, yes, we do.
And I don't know if you've received any, but I certainly have. And I wouldn't mind starting there because
Mm,
I'm going to say this: it was flattering.
right. Okay.
Mm, mm, that's nice.
I'm interested. I'm interested.
Yeah. So the feedback was this, and it was, "Wow, you guys have great voices. You should be commentators." At least
Mm,
that's what I heard. It
right.
it might have been you have great heads for podcasts.
Well, we are videoing this,
Well, this
so
is
we
true.
haven't quite got the YouTube channel
No, it's coming.
happening as
Ladies
yet,
and gentlemen,
but
it's
we are
coming.
working on it. Yeah.
It's a new year project. It's a 2024 project, we
Yeah,
promise.
we did decide pretty early, I think episode 2, that we were gonna
Yeah,
video it just in case we
just in
decided to
case.
go down the whole video YouTube channel, and yeah, we haven't quite figured out with our technology how to do that yet, but hey, we're on a learning
How hard can it be?
a learning journey.
Yeah. So that was one piece of feedback. Another piece of feedback that I received was, and I'll read it. It was, "Hey mate, I really enjoyed the mental game episode and learned a lot from that discussion." That's good.
Good, good.
Not sure that we did, but
No, no,
it's good that someone did.
as we I think we figured out last week, I think there are a lot more questions that we asked rather than
Oh, there's
answered
questions.
questions.
There are questions. There are so many questions, let me tell you. And there was one more piece. Okay, this is not direct feedback, although I would like to at least choose to believe that it is listener feedback,
Right.
because it does come from the big easy Ernie Els.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yes, and he actually, well, I assume it comes from him because it was attributed to him on the internet. Um,
So of course it's come from him,
yeah,
friend of the
and
show.
it has, I think, come from him, and essentially what he said was along the line. It was in response to the golf ball rollback controversy because obviously that's raising its head again at the moment. I
Yes.
think moves are being made to get a little bit closer to rolling the ball back. Not a topic for today's discussion, but the Big Easy did wade into the debate and said, "I'm not sure about the golf ball." I'm paraphrasing here. Okay, I'm not reading it word for word, but he said, "I'm not sure about the golf ball. However, long putters should be banned. It's not in the spirit of the game. And if we ban long putters, we would go a long way towards improving the game of golf." Any thoughts,
Wow.
Andy Walker?
Well, this is the thing is that what length is long?
Longer than normal.
But what's that? I mean, this is the whole thing, and if you then go down the long putters, you've then got to have a look at how people grip the putter as well.
You do.
So does that mean Jordan Spieth cross-handed? Do you ban cross-handed?
I I'm going to go out on a limb here and say if you want to putt cross-handed, um, if you want to chip cross-handed, a la Matt
Yeah.
Fitzpatrick,
Yep.
um, quite frankly, good luck to you because I just don't see how that gives you an advantage.
No. No. What about the claw? So what's Ernie's view on the claw?
Um, I feel like I've seen him use it.
Mm. So at what point do you go, no, that's enough? Because obviously the governing bodies went down that path not that long ago and decided that as long as you didn't pivot, the long putter was fine.
They did say that.
So
Ernie doesn't
so
agree with that though.
yeah, but it's interesting because I've listened. There's a Australian golf pro, Mark Allen, who has a similar opinion,
Mm.
and he's never clarified at what point do you stop and say, okay, well, this is legal. Where's that line in the sand?
Well,
Because
I
you're
think this
picking
is a big
the
question.
yeah the you're picking the long putter, but do you then pick, you know? have the way people grip the putter, or you know,
Well,
d-
that has kind of happened because you're not allowed to go between the legs,
mm,
croquet style.
yep,
There's no, sort of mallet style putting allowed.
yep,
There is a maximum shaft length on driver.
yeah, yeah, and my putter is shorter than my driver. So
Right?
then do you then designate a particular length for each club?
Do you? What happens if you're particularly tall?
Exactly.
Gustav Albrecht style. The
Yeah. So
might not even be his
again,
name, but that sounded like a good name.
again, at some point you've got to go, you know what, this is where the line is. And the RNA and the USPGA have done that.
So you're taking the stance
Or the
of it's
USGA, not USPGA, USGA
yeah,
have done
you're
that.
taking the stance of it's within the rules, therefore it's fine.
Well, it is within the rules currently. Now, obviously, the rules are there to be reviewed, and if those rules are changed, then I'll have to modify my game in order to do that. But at the moment, I'm playing within the rules, and anyone who has the opinion of okay, a long putter should be banned, well, I'd like to understand where they think that line should be drawn.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, I mean you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Andy Walker publicly taking on the big easy Ernie Els and taking
Mm,
him to task for his views that have been, and I'm putting words in Andy Walker's mouth here, ill thought through
mm.
and not fully formed.
Well, the other thing as well is that if you've got a standard length putter and you hold it like a broomstick, is that going to be illegal?
If you're kneeling
So,
down, I think it's fine.
well, no, I mean if you've got your top hand like a broomstick putter and your bottom hand in the same way, say Adam Scott uses his bottom hand, is that illegal? At
Why would you
what
do it?
point it's not necessarily the length of the putter that's the issue. It's also the grip as well.
Mm, mm. Big topic. Whilst we're on the topic of putters, Andy Walker, do you have any views on the lab golf putter? Another friend of the show, a long time listener, has messaged in to say that he's moved on to a lab putter,
Mm.
and it is almost impossible to hit a putt offline.
Yeah. Yeah, look, and I have read a little bit about the lab golf putter, and it's something that, yeah, I'd be keen to try at some point, but I also believe that they're fairly pricey as well. They're
They
up
are
around the
pricey
price of a driver, and
of a driver. They are.
I'd prefer
They are.
to change my driver over first before I started looking at another putter.
They are. Interestingly, as well, one of the things with those is that it might be very difficult to hit the putt offline, but that's the line that you choose to hit it on at the speed that you choose to hit it on. And our very good friend of the show, I think it's fair to say, um, didn't go that well on the weekend, and therefore you could argue that maybe it wasn't the putter's fault, or maybe it was the putter's fault. Who's to know? Maybe suffering because there has been a school of thought that amateur players shouldn't work too hard on their putting stroke because if they can't pick the line to begin with, then it's no use hitting it on the line.
See,
Not a
this
theory
this
that
is
I
where
subscribe to, but
this is where aim point comes into its own because aim point gives you the
aim
line,
point,
so
aim point with a lab putter would be exactly what you need.
you can't miss apparently.
Apparently, you can't. We digress. So, in tonight's episode, which is another fantastic 15-minute intro that we've been able to get through there before we actually get to
Excellent.
the point. In tonight's episode, it is our intention to have a look back, being the 10th, at what we've learned so far, um, what, if any, improvements we've seen in our games with the things that we've been working on. What are the bits that we think are actually worth continuing with and pursuing, and what are the bits that we think maybe it's time to let them go and move in another direction. But before we do that, I wouldn't mind just sharing, Andy Walker, if it's okay, the results from Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this was a big day. So just to set the scene, Saturday was a club comp, regular Saturday club comp was a Stableford round. Bit of an unusual setup because the course that I play at, we have 27 holes, so there's three nines, and every other week the third nine gets put into rotation with one of the two front nines. So this particular week we're playing holes 1 to 9, and then 19 to 27. Now, the
Right.
reason that that's important is because when that happens and the third nine gets put in, it messes around with the scratch rating of the course.
Right. But in a good way or
Depends how you
not?
look at it.
Yeah. So up or down, is it rated easier or more difficult?
It's rated easier. So it's past
Yeah, right.
71, but when the third nine comes in, it becomes a rating of 69.
Oh wow. Okay. So
So
two
this,
shots. Do you feel
yeah,
as though it's two shots difference, or do you
no,
feel as though they
no.
haven't quite got it right?
I genuinely think that they have not got it right. And I implore the committee to review this because it's a loop around a sort of a housing estate. And what that means is there's OB on both sides
Mm,
of holes of one, two, three, four, five holes of that nine. You've got OB down both sides.
right. So my
And they,
snap hook's not going to do too well
well,
then.
and this is the problem. They're not the longest holes, and that's why the course rating comes down. But there is water and there is OB.
Yeah, right.
So if you are going well off the tee, you will score well, sure. But if you get wayward at all, you're dead. So
Yeah,
you
right.
rack up a big number. So anyway, the reason that I mention it is because this particular round, I was losing a 7.1 flag round out of my best eight was going to
Yep.
drop out of the bottom on this round of golf, which meant that I had to post something in that vicinity to not to get into the single digits, but to avoid blowing out beyond 10.0 that I've been at. And when you're already losing two shots against your scratch rating from par,
Yeah.
um,
It's tough.
that makes it somewhat difficult. So anyhow, that's the background. That's enough background. So we turn up. The other thing I should mention is that it was 42 degrees on Saturday. And that is for our American
Celsius.
friends Celsius. So that is over the ton. So that's triple figures. It was hot.
Yeah.
So anyway, teed off at 7:30 in the morning, and I think it was about 41 degrees at 7:30 in the morning. So
Wow.
it was warm. So anyway, we teed off the first, which nice par five, straight par five, OB up the right, but it's not the hardest hole on the course. Hit a good drive, reasonable second, wedge in for my third, straight over the flagstick to about 15 feet. Hit the putt, and it was downhill, rolled past the hole. Was quicker than I thought, and went probably about 10 to 12 feet past the hole. And I
Yep.
went, so I was standing over, and this is the point that I make here is the thought process, the nature of thought, Annie Walker. I
Yep.
stood over that part, knowing the stats as I do, and I thought to myself, at 8 feet, tour pros are 50-50. I'm at about 12 feet.
Is that your best thought process though?
No, no, it isn't. This is the point. But this is what the
Wow.
brain does to you, right? It sneaks it in when you don't want it to. So ordinarily, I would then go and berate myself for thinking something so stupid
Hmm.
and get all upset and frustrated and tense before I've even hit the putt. Okay,
Yep.
I think we all experience that. But I didn't do that because I listened to my advice from the last episode and I went, yeah, that's a thought. Doesn't make it true. Or I could make it. And I relaxed and I hit the putt dead center par. Thanks for coming.
Nice. Nice.
So I felt quite good about life.
Hmm.
Walked up to the second tee box, snap hooked one into the trees.
Excellent.
And I was hard up against the trunk of a very large tree.
Hmm.
It was in jail. I had to come out backwards, pretty much, sort of probably about a little bit backwards, but back towards the fairway. Bunted a little 7-iron back towards the fairway. We took a couple of bounces in the rough, hit a stick that I hadn't seen, which stopped it in its tracks. Didn't get back to the fairway, left me blocked out for my third, so I couldn't get to the green. Cut a long story short, that hole finished in a triple bogey, Andy Walker.
Nice. Nice. So three
So
over after two.
3 over after two. But that's okay. We're mentally strong. We're resilient. We shake it off. So I get to the third tee straight.
Acceptance that,
Acceptance. You have to. Like these things happen. You're going to have a bad hole. You're going to have a bit of
yep.
bad luck. It's fine. Long way to go. We can make it up. Get to the third tee box, stand on the third tee box. And I thought, I'll just snap hooked one. I'm going to, try and swing a little bit more into out, and get it up the fairway. And I smoked it. It was a good drive. Just as the pros say, overdrew it a touch,
Mm.
back into the trees on the right hand side. So I got down there, not as far in, and I wasn't dead. I had a little bit of a line around a tree in front that I might have, if I could hit a wedge and I could draw a wedge. Now I'm asking you a bit here. If I could draw a wedge at about 15 to 20 meters back to the green, or at least a greenside bunker would be a half a chance. So I needed a big kind of a ropey swing. So anyway, I took the club back, gave it a good go, and Andy Walker, I hit what can only be described as a classic hosel rocket straight across the fairway into the trees on the left.
Excellent. Excellent.
It can happen. It can happen. So
To the
anyway,
best of us.
yep. I did get a friendly bounce off the tree back into the rough though. Had almost a line at the right edge of the green, hit it into the greenside bunker and got out two putted for what unfortunately was a double bogey. Five
So
over.
five over after three.
Yeah, five over after three, knowing that I needed to shoot somewhere about 5 or 6 over par for the
Mm.
18
Nice.
to not blow out from 10.0. So pressure was on. So let's be honest, at this point, I kind of didn't think there was a lot of chance to actually achieve this goal. So I reverted in, and you could go one of a couple of ways here. You could get down in the dumps, very cranky, throw it away, start loose swinging, and all those sorts of things. But I thought, no, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to forget about the score completely. I just want to hit some good golf shots. Okay, that's all I want to do. So had that focus. So from there, I reeled off 4 pars on the trot, which was quite good. So I'm then, what am I? I'm 5 over after 7.
Yep.
Par 3 eighth is around about, was flag at the front, was around about to the flag about 165 meters. Thinking of a center green kind of a yardage, took the 6 iron, didn't quite flush it, but it hit the front edge of the green. And it was about a 12-footer uphill, left to right. Nice looking putt for a left-hander. Hit a good putt, rolled up just past the edge of the hole, and then died and dropped in the back door for birdie.
Nice.
So that was good. So we were back to 4 over after 8. So that's not too bad. So then we get to the ninth. The ninth, par 4 dogleg around to the left. Brained a drive up the guts to the corner or past the corner. 9 iron to the front of the green. Again, it was a front pin. And Andy Walker drained another birdie putt, similar putt to the one before, but this time about 15 foot. So I was then 3 over after 9.
Back to back.
Game on. We go to the infamous second 9, which is the third 9. It's 19 to 27. At which point, 5 pars on the trot, Andy Walker. So
Okay.
I'm now, what am I, 3 over
Through
par
through 14.
with 4 to play. And at this point, thoughts of glory start creeping in.
Mm.
But to cut a long story short, I went bogey, 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 which is disappointing.
Yep.
But to be honest with you, all of those bogeys could easily have been passed. They were like burn the edge par putts, but they just didn't drop. And then parred the last hole to finish 6 over for the round,
Nice.
which with the stroke rating and all of those sorts of things actually worked out at a differential of 7.2 to replace my 7.1, which meant that the handicap has not moved.
Okay. So
7.0,
77 off the stick.
77 off the stick,
Nice. Nice.
which I think, like when I look at that, a 77 off the stick, finishing 6 over after
Mm.
being 5 over on 3 holes,
Yeah.
I'm pretty damn happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Good finish. Good. Yeah. Good comeback. Stayed resilient.
Yeah. And the thing that I've been thinking about afterwards is, was that just a good round, or have I learned a few things and actually improved over the last 10 weeks?
Or was it both?
Mm, don't mess with my head.
Maybe it was a good round because you've learned a couple of things over the last 10 weeks.
Well, you'd hope so.
Mm.
You'd hope so. I do think the things that really assisted was my driving was the best I think it's been.
Yep.
Aside from the two drives on 2 and 3 that cost me shots, everything else was in the fairway, and at reasonable distance as well. And that's because of something that I was working on. We've talked a few times about the front foot move,
Yep.
really pushing back to get rotation through the hips, clearing that
Mm.
front hip with the front foot.
Yep.
But where that goes wrong is, and this is something I figured out, interested in your thoughts, to see if I'm right or not. But when you do that, if you're swinging down the line, you kind of come over the top because you're pushing your front side, so your back shoulder will come out if you're just trying to swing down the line, and that's what was leading to the snap hooks. But when I was like consciously trying to swing out at the ball, so pushing back with the front foot, but really trying to swing out at the ball rather than straight up the line, that move actually drops the back shoulder down into plane much better than if you don't do that and you're thinking about swinging up the line, because you're actually turning your body a little bit. So that move of swinging out is actually swinging straighter. If what I'm saying is making sense to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, and interestingly, because I, having had the golf coaching a few weeks back, similar thing, in that one of my main issues is that my right shoulder flies at the top of the swing and then coming over the top, and my right elbow is still like quite a long way away from my body. But what my golf coach was trying to get me to do is to bring my right elbow closer to my body, both on the
Yeah,
backswing, but
yeah,
also on the downswing as well, which then brings you back on plane rather than if you've got your right elbow away from your body, as in me being a right hander, obviously it'd be the opposite for yourself, which then leads to a big over the top movement.
I think that's pretty much what I'm talking about. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is, like so many things in golf, if you're trying to change one thing, then thinking about that thing you're trying to change doesn't always change it, but sometimes thinking about a different feeling and a different move
Yeah.
does change it.
Yep.
I think we've all experienced those things before, and that was just a bit of a light bulb moment when I was, because I'd always, I think, had a battle with two issues in the swing. One was early extension, and the other was coming over the top.
Mm.
Not unusual. I
Yep.
think a lot of amateur players battle with those two things. I feel like the that front foot move of really driving back off the front foot as you start your downswing, so that you're rotating the hips, that seems to help the early extension move. But then that feeling of swinging out at the ball actually drops that elbow back into the rib cage a little bit more rather than coming out and swinging around the body.
Yeah, but you've also got to be careful because you still want to transfer your weight to your, or for you it would be to your right foot. For me it'd be to my left foot. So your
You got to
hips,
do that
your first
first.
movement of your
That's
hips
got to
has to
happen
be
first.
forward,
Yeah. And
and
then you
then
rotate.
you clear your hips. If you're just from the top of your swing, if you're just clearing your hips and not making that first move forward, that's gonna end in disaster.
Yeah. Sorry. Should have mentioned that. Absolutely. But as you know, I'm already forward anyway because I never get off the front foot. So it doesn't really matter.
Yep. Yep.
So anyway, and what I like is, so if we went back 10 weeks and tried to have that conversation, I wouldn't have had a clue what you were talking about.
Yep.
So I feel like there's a little bit of knowledge gain there, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that was the whole point of what we're doing with the podcast, is to
Yeah.
be able to explore and go down some of these rabbit holes so that we can improve our knowledge across the board and improve our game.
Yeah. So yeah, what are we talking about? You push off push forward off the back foot, not and as in towards the target, not towards the ball. The front foot essentially is the brake that stops you going too far, but then starts to turn that into a rotational force
Well, it's also
as you're dropping into the downswing.
your first move forward isn't necessarily about your back foot either, because this is where you're using the earth to be able to create that force and club head speed. So you've got to do that with both feet. It can't just be off your rear foot,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
You hear some people talk about the squat and drive that some of the
Yeah,
pros use. Is
yeah.
this what you're talking about?
Similar, yeah, because that's where they're using, their force and the ground to be able to create momentum in their swing. So you're moving first forward, and this is where in that YouTube video from the Chasing Scratch guys,
Mm.
where he's not using his back foot to clear his left side. He's using the front foot to clear the left side. And that's then
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
pushing down into the earth
Yeah.
using the ground to create momentum.
Yes.
So it's
Agree.
not just using your rear foot, it's using both to be able to create that momentum throughout the swing
Mm. Mm. I think we're saying the same thing.
in different ways.
Yeah. Because the funny thing as well, and this is one of the other things that I've learned, is the way I explain it versus the way that you explain it versus the way that anyone else or any other coach will explain it makes sense to the feels that they've got
Yes.
going that need to happen to execute the golf swing.
Yeah.
And if I try and explain the golf swing in terms of my feels, that won't work for you, and vice versa. Because and I think that's the hard part, because it's not just about copying moves. It's about getting what are the things I need to think about to get the right feel, to get the movements to execute in the right sequence so that I actually create the right movements for a golf swing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting because I was listening to another golf podcast this morning, and the guy was basically saying exactly that. Is that he's a golf coach, and unless someone has absolutely no clue as to what they're doing, he will work with what the golfer's already got and use their own movements to improve their golf swing. So he doesn't have a one size fits all methodology. He says, okay, well, you've got two different golfers. They've
Mm.
both got different feels. They've both got different ways of being able to get to the golf ball. Yeah, there are the fundamentals there, but what works for one person won't necessarily work for the next person. So he tries to work with what the golfer's already got to be able to get the best out of their swing.
Yeah. And this is also where you get to things like matchups, like you might have a particularly strong grip with a different type of swing plane that matches up well. If you muck around with one of those but not the other, you'll create more problems than you'll solve.
Yeah.
So complicated. I hope that's cleared everything up for everybody listening.
Yeah. Again, I think asking more questions than answering them, but anyway.
Yeah. So, in the course of two episodes, we have established that we are not experts on sports psychology. I feel we've just established that we're not experts on biomechanics or the ins and outs of the golf swing, but nice voices. So,
Yeah,
hey,
apparently we've
hey,
got a good head for a podcast.
good head for a podcast. Yeah, just not necessarily a videoed one on YouTube. So
Mm.
let's keep it audio. Anyway, that was the story of the round. So, look, I guess all in all, the point of that little anecdote was that I'm still on 10.0. However, the difference at this point is that this recording of being on 10.0 feels like a win. Because this was a round that I was a little bit concerned about in the lead up, that if that went wrong and it was not a flag round, then I I actually could have lost more than half a shot because
Mm.
if that 7.1 dropping out was my next unused best round, which was something like a 13 and a half or something like that, then I could have lost about 6.6 or 0.7 of a shot. So
Yeah, right. Okay.
to stay where it was,
Mm.
um,
So that was a flag
pretty good.
round on Saturday then?
Oh god, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that yeah, it's a differential of 7.2. So
Mm.
and what's interesting as well is I had a bit of a look at my handicap history. And I've now got, which I did beforehand because I've replaced like for like basically, but I've got 4 of my 8 rounds that count in handicapping processes are all single digit rounds.
Yeah, right.
So, and then the others are sort of around about, there's a couple of 10 and a halves and a couple of 12s, and
Yep.
those sorts of things. So if I can, I don't need to do a lot I've just got to replace those couple of 12s with,
Couple of
you know,
single digits.
yeah, and that could shift things significantly.
Mm.
So that was interesting as well.
Okay. Bring on 2024.
Yeah, I think so. So I don't think it's likely that I'm going to get another comp round in 2023. So I'm probably going to finish the year at 10.0. I think I started the year about 10.6.
Yeah, I think
Um,
I'm going to struggle to get another comp round in.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're probably there. Um, which I think kind of takes us to the next part of this episode, which is the year in review. Andy
Yep.
Walker,
Mm.
how have we gone? What do we think? And what should we work on? So how do you want to approach this? I feel like maybe a bit of a strokes gain comparison to what we talked about in episode 2 versus where we're at now.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I think that's a probably good place to start, and then I mean, I think looking back, there's a lot of things that have worked over the last couple of months, but there's also a few things that probably haven't worked that well. So keen to maybe have a conversation about that as well.
Yep, I would concur. So do you want to kick off since we've heard about my adventures? Uh,
Yeah,
Throw to
well,
you for a bit of a review.
yeah. Look, in regards to strokes gained, or negative strokes gained as it is to a scratch handicap. And now I've only played 2 competition rounds since we've
Right. Yep.
been on the podcast. So it seems as though my strokes gained has sort of gone, up and down a little bit. Now, currently, my strokes gained against a scratch handicapper is minus 6.3. Now,
Mm.
if I remember correctly, I was about minus 7.5 couple of months back
That
when we
sounds
in
about right.
episode 2.
Yep.
Yeah, and if you break that down, it's minus 1.4 driving, minus 1.1 approach, minus 1.9 short game, and minus 1.9 putting.
Really?
Yeah, so putting seems to be one of those things because I think I was only like minus 1 putting because that was the area that I wanted to I had the least improvement and I wanted to
Yeah.
reduce from minus 1 to minus zero point 0.5. I've got it
I
got it
was
right
waiting. I was
because that
waiting
was
for
listener
it. I
feedback.
was
Yeah,
waiting
yeah,
for it.
not
Minus
minus
point zero five.
0.05,
Yeah.
minus zero point
Zero
0.5.
point 0.5.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. Okay. That I find a little surprising given the improvements with aim point.
Yeah, yeah, but and again, interesting. You look at you break that down a little bit further in the distance, and 0 to 3 meters is minus 1.3. 3 to 8 meters is minus zero point 0.8. 8 to 15 meters is plus zero point 0.1.
That was your Magenta Shores round.
Yeah, and 15 plus meters is plus zero point 0.4. So the longer the putts that I have, the
Yeah.
better I am in regards to strokes gained against a scratch handicapper,
Well,
which I
yeah.
find quite interesting because again, with my own view of how I putt, I don't think I'm a good long putter, but strokes gained and the stats say something different.
I think part of it is looking at how strokes gain works, and it's about proximity to the hole.
Yeah.
So it's applying, it's describing proximity to the hole in shots instead of meters or feet.
Yeah.
So, say you're 50 foot from the hole and you get a putt, and we know that 8 foot's 50-50, right? If you sink an 8 footer, you gain a half a shot. If you miss an 8 footer, you lose a half shot. Say you're 50 feet from the hole. If you get that inside 5 feet, you're probably gaining a quarter of a shot
Yeah.
or more.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you leave
So
it
so
outside 10
15
feet, you're
meters,
probably
what?
losing
So 15 meters, what's that, about 40, 45 feet?
45 feet, 45 feet, roughly. Yeah.
Thereabouts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a reasonable length putt
Yeah.
where I think that's a weak part of my putting now. You know, I've never thought that I was a great putter inside 3 meters, but I didn't think that was the weakest part of my putting, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, but it's a comparative assessment against the database, I guess, is the point.
Mm,
It's not necessarily a statistic saying how many of them you sink and how many of them you don't.
yeah.
And I think that's I also would argue. Um, I don't know exactly how well the Arcos tracks your putting distances and some of those sorts of things, but I know ShotScope's not great on putting. Like I don't put
Mm.
much in the
Emphasis on
putting
putting, yeah.
on the putting stats. The overall putting stat, fine. I think that tells a story, but I wouldn't bother trying to break it down to specific distances. It
Yeah.
will attempt to give you the data, but I just don't.
Yeah.
I've never felt that confident on it. So
Yeah, and look, I have to say that I do have to go into Arcos after my round and adjust where the pin placements are, adjust
yeah,
where abouts on the green I was. Of course, yeah, it's not as good as what I'd expected it to be.
yeah.
Still,
I
I
think
think
it's
overall gives reasonable data, and I
yeah.
think that there's a fair degree of accuracy there, but it's not. I've got to go in and manipulate it a little bit
I think it's
after
the
the round.
same. I think it's the same as shot scope, to be honest. And I think um, it tells a bit of a story. Like the overall stat is one thing. I guess it depends how diligent you are with the editing of exactly where you hit your putts from and where the flags were and those sorts of things. But um, I don't know that you can. I don't know that unless you're really marking them out on little documents and a sheet after every hole, which some people do.
Yep.
I think it's pretty hard to do that.
Yeah. So it's interesting. The breakdown there of minus 1.4 driving, minus 1.1 approach, minus 1.9 short game, and minus 1.9 putting. That's about where I thought my game was
Yeah.
before Arcos, and that's probably yeah where a pretty good sort of cross section of where it is. And that I always thought that my iron play was pretty good. My driving has been somewhat inconsistent in recent times, but still not bad. And yeah, I've always thought that short game and putting is my weakness.
Mm.
So it's starting to play out where as we
As
add
you
more
expected.
rounds into the equation, that distribution, I guess, of strokes gained is playing out pretty close to what I'd expected.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So I
So
might,
that gives me a little bit of data to work with to start adjusting what I want to do next year. And yeah, after we go through your strokes gained, yeah, we might sort of have a look
yeah,
at
then
how
we'll talk
that,
about plans for the future.
yeah, the
Absolutely.
the adjustments to the plan.
Absolutely. So what I've done to have a look at this and see where it's moved, when we went through this back in episode 2 in quite some detail, I had a look at my strokes gained both against a 10, a 5, and a scratch handicapper. I've
Yep.
chosen for the purpose of consistency, so that we're talking the same language, we'll just compare against scratch handicappers because I think then we're talking the same numbers between the two of us,
Yeah.
which
And I
makes
mean,
more
at the end of
sense.
the day, that's our goal,
That's where we want to be.
isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's
Yeah.
sort of draw that baseline and go, okay, well, yeah, scratch
Yeah.
handicapper,
That's what
that's
what we'll
what we're
measure against.
comparing against.
The only difference, of course, as we have mentioned numerous occasions, you're using the Arcos system. I'm using the shot scope system. it shouldn't really make much difference from,
Wouldn't
the
have thought so.
methodology of strokes gained is the same, but I don't know. Just put that out there as a caveat in case there are any differences that anyone knows about. So anyhow, to get into the data in episode 2, so when we first looked at this for starting lines, my stats were tee shots were minus 2.04, approaches were minus 4.61, short game was minus 2, putting was minus 2.5, sorry, minus 0.25. I nearly did an Andy Walker then. So of that, it was saying that actually my putting was my strength, which I really found to be confusing, but
Yep.
the data doesn't lie. So overall, I was losing 8.9 shots on average to a scratch handicapper. And that was based on the 5 most recent rounds that I'd played at that point in time. And I did have a
Yes.
couple of good ones. I had in that I'd had a round which was a
Well, that was your
differential of
Bathurst
four,
one.
yeah, of 4.4. So
Yeah. Yep.
there was some good stuff in that. And I do remember like that round, I drained everything I looked at, like
Yep.
it just was one of those days that the putting was good. So I feel like maybe that's
Skewed
made
the
that
data a bit.
look a little bit better than it was. So for the purpose of exercise, what I've done this time around is like, again, I've looked at the last 5 rounds. And that does include the 2 rounds in Mudgee, which weren't awesome. And like basically it's got all my 3 free swing rounds in there that, as we know,
Yep.
weren't my best. But it's also got Saturday's round, which is probably one of my best. So
Yep.
there, overall probably tells the story, and it does. So looking at tee shots, I've gone from minus 2.04 to minus 2.23. So I've actually lost almost zero point 0.2 of a shot.
Yep.
It's pretty line ball, to be honest. Zero
Yep.
point 0.2 of a shot's not much of a difference. Approach shots, this is an interesting one. Approach shots went from minus 4.61 to minus 2.64. So I've
Okay.
gained the best part of 2 shots on
Yep.
approach shots. I think that's legit. I know my iron striking now is so much better than it was,
Yep.
when we started this podcast.
You're
Um,
welcome.
yeah. Look, I think there's a couple of things, more than a couple of things. Firstly, yeah, good tip. Fair enough. Thanks for the swing analysis and comparisons to Adam Scott. If you're going to compare your swing to anyone, that's probably not a bad place to
Absolutely.
start.
Or
Um,
Louis Oosthuizen does pretty well as well. He's my
yeah,
other one that I
yeah.
think when I'm thinking tempo, I'm thinking Louis
Oh,
Oosthuizen.
tempo.
He's a
Louis, he's
phenomenon.
silky smooth. I don't know about his pre-shot routine when it comes to putting, though. That concerns me a little, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
Um, short game, short. Oh, sorry. Before I go on, the other things that have really helped with iron play has been investing in the net for the garage
Yep.
and hitting balls, like just hitting balls, playing around with.
It'd be surprising that like
It's
practicing
amazing.
more, yeah,
I'm
would
going to take.
improve your swing.
I'm going to take something from that lesson and apply it in a variety of ways. We'll talk about that later. Um, but that has made a big difference, and that's enabled me in a controlled environment to actually try some different things and work on some swing changes. Because before having that, realistically, I would work on swing changes in rounds.
Yeah, that's not good. Not good.
It's been amazing how it hasn't fallen completely apart though. But that was really the only opportunity to do it. They weren't all comp rounds. Like sometimes there'd be 9-hole practice rounds after work and things like that. But you can't consistently groove something in because you're hitting one ball and walking and
Yeah.
hitting another one and generally having a chat with your mates and then getting a bit competitive and stop thinking about what you want to do because you want to actually win the hole and some of those sorts of things. So anyway, um, having an ability to hit practice balls is very important. I think that's a lesson I've taken
Yeah. Yeah. And
out
and
of
look,
that exercise.
the whole concept of practicing while you're either in the garage on in your practice net or on the practice driving range, and then going out into the golf course and just trusting what
Yeah,
you have on that day
yeah,
rather than trying to continue
yeah,
to make
yeah,
changes in your golf swing.
yeah,
That's one thing over, well, it's not just the last couple of months, but probably over the last probably 12 months that I've really learnt in that I'm not trying to make any changes while I'm on the golf course. It's when I'm having a practice swing. It is just feel. It is pure feel, trying to feel the club face and my swing and where I want it to be. I think that's so important when you get out on the golf course.
It is. It is if you can do it. I've got to be honest. Like once I try and put a change in play, um, I do feel like it. I don't know if it sticks quickly, but I feel like it. I find it difficult to not think about it and not try and do it when even though it's in a round. That was a bit of a ramble. I don't think I articulated it very well, but I just feel like once I start to focus on something, it starts to almost gather momentum on its own.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
it's probably the way it's meant to happen. Another thing that's been really useful now, I would thoroughly recommend everybody giving this a go, and that is doing the foot powder spray on your club face to
Oh
check
yeah.
where you're striking the ball on the club face. That is just such good feedback. You obviously you think you know where you're hitting the ball on the club face, and you're generally pretty right. Like you know when you shank it, that's a fact. But it's really interesting to see where the bias is, if it's slightly heel bias, slightly toe bias, and then the other thing which I know Adam Young in his work and his podcast in Sweet Spot podcast he talks about a lot is deliberately trying to manipulate where you're striking the ball on the face. And
Yeah.
moving it slightly towards the toe or moving it
Mm.
slightly towards the heel and some of those sorts of things just in little increments to get better feel for where the club face is. I think I've got a long, long, long way to go on that front, but
Yeah, I struggle with that concept. That's very foreign to in any of the practice that I've done and been taught to do
he
to try and
he
manipulate the
believes he
club
has
face.
data. Well, what he's saying is you will learn how to apply the center of the club face to the ball more quickly by using differential practice, deliberately hitting different parts of the club face rather than just trying to learn how to hit the middle of the club face. I don't know. I genuinely don't know, but Um, I'm also really scared of doing that in the garage because if I start deliberately shanking them, like we've got gyp rock walls, okay, it's not going to end
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so
Need to
that's
be in
probably
your
not going to.
cage.
Yeah, one day they're not cheap.
Mm.
So, but that's been a really useful process, and I think I've learned a lot. So I would absolutely recommend it. I think if you're looking for something to do, if you're sitting there listening, saying I'd like to work on improving my ball striking with my irons, I think get a net, use it in the backyard, use it in the garage, wherever it suits,
Yep.
and do the foot spray on your club. You actually learn a lot. It's really, really interesting process.
Mm.
So there's that. So anyway, moving on to short game. My short game in episode 2 was at minus 2.0. It now is registering at minus 3.11. So that is a negative shift of
Yep.
1.11 Nelson. Um, that's not ideal.
No.
But caveats to that, I would say that it includes a round at Bathurst, which I talked about on the show, where I got stuck in a couple of bunkers and played some particularly poor shots, and that's going to pollute the data set. Also, in fairness, I have been tinkering around with short game technique. Not all of those tinkers have been successful, and once again, I am haunted by the words of Dave McClelland.
Yeah.
I can hear it resonating in my headphones. Short game, short game, short game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I concede you may have a point,
Yep.
and that will be, as we talk about focuses for 2024, definitely on the list.
Interestingly, though, a point that I was going to bring up a little bit later in the show in regards to short game. Been reading a lot more of Dr. Bob Rotella's books,
Yes,
and what he talks about, and because I've had a few issues reconciling some of the approaches that we've talked about in regards to strokes gained and focusing on uh, you know your swing and getting off the tee and getting onto the green and less importance on short game, so more focus on your ball
on the ball
striking.
striking. Yep.
And then obviously reconciling that with what David McCollum talks about in regards to short game, short game, short game. And the way that Dr. Bob Rotella talks about it is he says that when you're first learning the game, And when you're on a high handicap, your focus should be more on getting your swing right and being able to hit the ball,
Mm,
right? So ball
mm,
striking should be
mm.
your main goal, which I think is sort of what the point that we were making in that
I
we
think
want to
it's
get our ball
exactly the point.
striking
Yeah,
to a point where it's, we're hitting maybe 10, 11 greens in regulation, right?
yeah, yeah.
He said once you achieve that, then it's short game and putting. And that's then going to take your game to the next level to become a scratch or better golfer. And what he talks about is that even the best ball strikers of all time only average 12 and a half to 13 greens in regulation. He talks about Ben Hogan. And Ben
Yeah,
Hogan, at his best, still only averaged 12 to 13 greens in regulation per
crazy,
round.
crazy.
So if that's as good as you're going to get, his point is you need to get your ball striking to a point where you can, well, majority of the time keep it out of trouble and get it onto the green or around the green. But there's only a certain limit to how good you can get with your ball striking, and no one has been able to surpass that limit. So
Yeah,
then the
yeah,
difference you need to
yeah.
work on from there as you get to be a better golfer is your short game and putting.
Yeah, yeah.
And that
Look,
that to me just put it in perspective and help
yeah,
me
yeah, yeah, yeah,
reconcile
yeah.
what it is that I should be looking at over the next 12 months to 2 years.
I think that's absolutely right. And I was kind of I've been mulling it over in my own way, and I'm happy to say, without putting too many tickets on myself, that I've actually come to a similar place to Dr. Bob Rotella, with explaining this. So, great minds, as they say, think alike.
That's what they say.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you just said, because my kind of reconciliation that I was going to offer on that front was that the better you get, the more important your short game becomes.
Correct. Yes.
It is another way of saying the same thing, right?
Mm.
And I think, like, I was talking to my dad about this, about his game, and remember, our dad's similar age,
Yeah.
and Donny's struggling to break 100 these days. Still loves the game, gets out, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
fantastic. But at that point where it's breaking for 100 for him is a good day.
Yep.
And we were having a chat about it, and I said, look, and we talked about this before, that golf courses at par 72 are set up for 36 shots in general play, 36 putts. Like that's regulation.
Yep.
If you're shooting 100 because you're shooting 36 general play shots and making 64 putts in a round,
A lot
I
of
don't think
parts.
anyone, I don't think anyone's ever done it, right? Like, because even if you three putt every single hole, what are you, 54 putts? So no one's ever done that. Or maybe they have. I don't
I
know. But
reckon someone has. At some point,
no,
someone
I
has.
don't. I genuinely don't. I
I,
don't think
I, I I
anyone
don't
has
I don't
ever
know if
done
they've
it.
had I don't know if they've had like 50 shots and 54 putts for 104, but I reckon someone has had more than 54 putts at some point.
Yeah, but no one that has had only 36 shots in general play
That is
has
true.
had that
That is
many
true.
putts. I promise you of that. Um, so anyway, we talked about that as the extreme. And then looking at, say a player who is trying to break 80, is probably going to be averaging somewhere around the 30 to 32-ish putts for a round. And part of that is because they're missing greens and chipping and putting to get up and down rather
Mm.
than hitting two putts in
Yeah.
regulation. And so their general play shots are going to be, sort of hovering somewhere around the mid 40s. And that there's a bit of leeway there to bring that down closer to 36.
Yeah, for sure.
There's probably not a huge amount of leeway at that point to bring those number of putts down. And in fact, as that ball striking improves, you might actually see that putting number go up because you're
Yeah.
putting more. I think when I look at my stats, that my approach shot gains in strokes gains of about two shots on approaches, I think I'm forcing myself to putt more from further away now than what I was
Yeah.
before. And I
Yeah.
think that's
And
actually what's driving that putting number in the direction it's going.
yeah. And that's a great point in that if your approach play, if you improve your approach play and you're hitting more greens in regulation, rather than having a chip and putt and maybe putting from inside 10 feet, if you've got more 30 to 40 footers, you're going to have more putts, and
Yeah.
therefore your strokes gained or negative strokes gained is going to be a lot higher.
Yeah. And that's what's happening. Because on Saturday, for example, I hit 12 greens.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever done that before.
Yeah.
And I think I had something like 33 putts or 32
Yep.
putts or something in the vicinity of about that. Yeah, so that was interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
Long way around, but we got there in
Mm,
the end. We agree with
yeah.
Dr. Bob. Congratulations, Dr. Bob. You get the Missing Links Golf Show seal of approval for your theories on the better you get, the more important short game is.
Yep. Yep. So putting, we didn't I cut you off before you got to strokes gained in
Oh,
putting.
right. Sorry. Yeah. So putting hasn't shifted a lot. It was in episode 2, it was minus two, sorry, minus 0.25. It is now minus 0.54. So it's gone up by zero point 0.3 of a shot, but I think we just covered that. Like I genuinely
Yeah.
feel like I'm asking more of my putter now
Yep.
more often than using a wedge onto the green and putting from closer.
Yeah. 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 Well, it'll be interesting to see how over the next, say, 12 months, if you continue to improve, how that impacts your putting and where that ends up, whether that blows out a little bit because you're having longer
Which it
putts
could, it
or
could, it
yeah.
could, yeah. So it's an interesting one. So it's not just so black and white. And I think that what we've figured out of that is that you can't look at the different parts of your game necessarily just in isolation.
Yeah, correct.
They link together.
Definitely. Definitely.
Except tee shots, you could probably look at tee shots in isolation. It's a bit like the first swimmer in a relay.
Correct. Correct. So
Anyway,
then, but based on that, what's your view on what's worked over the last 10 weeks
yep,
and your plan. We've got a
yep,
Google Calendar here where we've got a bit of a plan as to how we were going to go about improving.
yep,
You still haven't engaged a golf coach yet. That's a big one, and I think
yep.
2024 could be a big opportunity there. So take us through a what you think's you've done well over the last 10 weeks, what you can improve, and how you're going to adjust in 2024.
Yeah. So, good questions, Andy Walker. You should be in interviewing or something like that. Maybe in commentary on the
Maybe
Golf Channel.
got a good
Um,
head for commentary, apparently.
yeah. Maybe keep it to radio. Anyway, the the things that look, the things I think that have worked. I talked about it before. It's getting some practice facilities happening that
Yep.
is here at home. I live on a golf course, but it's not as easy as you would think actually to get
Yeah.
out there and spend
Yeah.
time on it for a variety of
Yeah. I,
reasons.
I, I live 3 minutes from my golf club, and again, still
Yeah,
trying to get there around work is tough.
it's a
So
challenge.
yeah, I
It's a
have been
challenge.
thinking about the golf net. In fact, I had been thinking about maybe buying my son a cricket net for Christmas.
That just
That I
so happens to be able to be used for golf as well. I mean, I think that's a fantastic idea.
there's no hidden agenda there at all.
I might do the same. I love that idea. Um, anyhow, the interestingly, that when I was learning to play guitar, this is a bit of a random anecdote, but there was a thing called the 8 second rule.
Yep.
If you had to move to get your instrument and it took you more than 8 seconds to pick it up, your chances of practicing would significantly diminish.
Yeah, right.
So there's something in that in terms of
Yeah,
golf practice. It
for
might not
sure.
necessarily be 8 seconds, but
Yeah.
having the ability to just, kind of walk through a door and there's your setup versus having
Yeah.
to get in the car and load your clubs, unload your clubs, and all the
See,
things
I,
you got to
I
do
I
to
think the same thing
drastically
as well
decrease.
in regards to fit gym and fitness work, because I've got
Totally.
dumbbells and a cross trainer in my garage, and I've
Yeah.
been pretty good with my resistance and cross training, same as the stack. I've been doing well since the incident, and I've got my stack set up back.
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
pretty diligent with making
Yeah.
sure that I do a stack session every couple of times a week.
Yeah.
So it's there. I'll walk out one door into the garage and it's all there. So it makes it so much easier
Yeah. Yeah.
to be able to commit to action if it's within arm's reach, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes all the difference. So that's worked well. I will continue with that. I have put in my request to Santa Claus for a piece of kit that will make the practice sessions a lot more fun
Nice.
and a lot more meaningful.
Mm,
I don't want to say the words launch monitor or simulator out loud, but Santa, if you're listening,
yeah.
there's a couple of little tips
Get
that you
get
might want
get
to
on
look at.
it.
Yeah. Got a couple of brands I can send you as well.
Mm,
So we'll see how that plays out because I think that could make a huge difference into 2024. And the more that I get to understand my, particularly my iron swing, it's going to make a very big difference. The other thing is working on short game and putting. I've done a bit, but not nearly enough. And
yep.
I think I'm only at the point at the moment where I'm causing myself more problems than what I'm solving.
Yep.
Which I feel is actually part of the process because I'm trying to work on a couple of specific things with wedge play around the greens.
Do you think
And it's
maybe getting a golf coach may help in that
I'm
respect?
coming to that, Andy Walker. I'm coming to that. I'm talking about at the moment answering the first part of your question about what's worked well and what I'm going to continue,
Ah, okay, right.
not what I'm
Yep.
changing.
Sorry. Didn't mean to
The
interrupt.
no, that's feel free. That's actually the nature of this show. Keep each other accountable. That's how we roll. The next one is continuing to focus on mental resilience on the golf course. I genuinely feel like I have made some really good strides in this space.
Right. How's the
Um,
meditation going? Do you feel as though that's
that
got you
falls
over the
in
line a bit?
that falls into the next bracket of things that really haven't worked. Things that
What about journaling? How's that going
that
for
also
you?
falls into the bracket of things that haven't worked.
Ah.
Because I don't like that stuff.
Why am I not surprised?
I can't be any more honest about it. I find, and I wholeheartedly apologize, unreservedly apologize to anybody out there who is big on meditation and journaling. If that's your thing, go for it. You know, knock yourself out. I'm sure it's so therapeutic and so much fun. It bores me to tears. So I can't do it, Andy Walker. I'm
Mm,
out.
yeah,
I am hanging up
done.
the meditation boots. And I'm going to move on with my life and I'm going to apply that 10 to 15-minute period to something, shall we say, more productive.
Oh, sorry.
He's gone, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh,
He's gone.
wow.
He's absolutely not surprised. I think he's been waiting for this message to
Yeah,
come for quite a while,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like I've given it a go. How many times have I actually meditated over the past 10 weeks? I don't
So
know.
our
Twice.
conversation around that you wanted to know the outcome of whether my driver and the shafts of my driver and
Yeah.
fairway wood
Yeah.
suited my
Yeah.
swing. Yeah, so,
Yeah.
sort of the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. No, it is. But the Missing Links Golf Show is nothing if not curious. And we we've always we've never frowned upon a suggested method for self-improvement. In fact, we
Mm,
embrace all methods and I think it's our duty on behalf of golfers all around the world, particularly in Australia, the United States, Japan, and Mexico, to actually attempt these improvement methods
yeah.
and to report back as to whether they work or they don't work. What I can categorically say is meditation does not work. Don't waste your time. There's better things that you could be doing. You could be working on technique, skills, strength, fitness, you name it, nutrition, even. I don't know. You could be having good relationships with other people. You could be doing more than sitting still on the floor, staring at a golf ball, trying to clear your mind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Here
Look,
ended the lesson.
I'm not going to disagree with any of that. I do think that there's value. So, for instance, when I'm out walking my dogs, which I try and do most mornings, to quieten my mind and to try and just be present and be focused on what I'm doing, massive value
Absolutely.
in that.
Absolutely.
Massive value in that. Same as when I'm on the practice fairway, to quieten my mind just to be present and focus on what I'm doing and what I'm trying to achieve, which, in a lot of ways, that is meditation, but it's active meditation rather than passive meditation.
And I think that's the thing. I honestly think that's the thing. Like for me, that's the role sports always played in my life.
Yeah,
In cricket playing days, when you went to training and you were facing a bowler in the nets that was rapid, you couldn't be thinking about what happened at work. You had to be thinking about what you were doing
yeah,
at that very moment and 100% absorbed in what you do.
mm,
I think sport plays that role.
yeah,
Music plays that role. If you learn an instrument and you're attempting to play the instrument, read music or not, you have to be focused on what you're doing for rhythm, tempo, all those sorts of things. The difference in golf is that there's so much time to allow other things to come into your mind because it's not reactive.
yeah.
It's a different style of sport, and I think that's why people struggle with this. But I fundamentally, for me, don't think that meditation is the go. I also,
Mm. Well, it's passive meditation, and I
yeah,
think
yeah,
we've got
yeah,
to, you've
yeah,
got to,
yeah,
there's a
yeah,
difference there between active meditation and passive meditation, and
yeah.
I'm the same. I don't, I can't do passive meditation. I have tried it previously. It's not something that I'm I particularly enjoy or want to engage in, but the active meditation, different story. Going out and being present while I'm walking the dogs, while I'm on the practice range, even going for a walk. There's been times where I've
Totally,
gone
totally.
out, gone for a walk. I've put on a podcast or put on an audio book, put the headphones in, and gone out for a walk and just tried to be in that moment.
Yeah,
Love doing that. That's
that's
got a
that's
lot
that's fine.
massive benefit.
That's fine, but
But
not
sitting
sitting still
there,
on the floor. It's
no,
not that
going,
doesn't do it for me. Yeah, it's not.
yeah, no,
But hey, we gave it a go.
yeah, yeah, and you've got to give all techniques a crack.
Yeah, and as the great man once said, you got to know when to hold them, you got to know when to fold them,
Correct,
know when to
correct.
walk away,
Mm.
know when to
Know when
run.
to run. Mm.
Mm. Anyway, that's where we're at.
Yep.
So one last point. You raised the question about a golf coach.
Yes.
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 So I am in the market for a golf coach, and what here's my strategy. I live in a regional setting where
Yep.
I do have a local pro who I think probably has a lot to offer. Good guy, respect his game, respect his opinion. However, I'm not going to go down that path. The reason I'm not going to go down that path is because what I would like to do is to try and address the issues that a lot of people that live in regional centres are faced with, and that's a lack of access to expertise and to coaching. So what
Yep.
I want to try and do is to find a virtual coach online
Right.
and to engage through that style to see if that works. Because
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
as a service to listeners, that's something that actually might be worthwhile to go. This either works or doesn't work, and
Yeah. Look, and there's a lot
that,
of
that's what I
there's a
want to
lot
do.
of golf coaches out there that are engaging online now, and you take a video of your swing, you upload your swing, and they will give you feedback based on the video that you give. I actually have had a look at a couple of golf coaches that purely operate online, and yeah, I can see the value in it.
Yep. So we want to give that a go. And I think from my point of view, like I have quite a lot of data now in terms of all the shot scope data, which can be shared with the
Yep.
coach. If Santa does come through with the goods, then there might be a bit of launch monitor data that can be shared as well. So I
Yep.
feel like there's a lot more as well than just video content that they could work with. So I
Mm.
think that could work. And if it does, then that's great because then we can tick something off that other people that might not have easy access to the coach that they want we can show that it works or it doesn't work.
Yep.
So that's me. What's your
Mm.
plan?
Um, Look, there's something that I think I really need to keep focused on, and it's something that I made a bit of a change out at Mudgee, and that is on expectations, mindset, and acceptance.
Mm,
That's one thing that I've really struggled with in the past. And,
mm,
go back to sort of August, September, sort of pre-podcast, I was starting to have probably too many expectations of my golf game. And I started to get quite disappointed when I wasn't performing at my expectation, which was quite often. And
mm,
my mindset would just go downhill and I would start not actually enjoying the game.
mm.
And yeah,
That is
that's
such a common story, though. You know,
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't
And
think there's anyone listening that wouldn't go, "Yeah, I get that."
yeah, so one of the things that I've tried doing, certainly out at Mudgee, was front and center of my mindset was accept whatever happens and don't get upset about it. You're gonna have some good shots, you're gonna have some bad shots, you might have a good
Mm,
round, you might not, but just accept whatever comes.
mm,
And that's for 36 holes. That's what I did. And I mean, we played both rounds together. And I don't know if
mm.
you noticed a difference between, say, where I was at Mudgee in comparison to, say, where I was when we went up to Nelson Bay. And certainly
Um,
Pacific Dunes was one that is the probably the round that I've thought about quite a lot, that first 6 holes where I was 7 over after six, and
yeah,
I ended
yeah,
up
yeah,
7 over after 18. Now we had
yeah,
a conversation
yeah,
on the seventh, and I was not in a good place
yeah,
mentally.
yeah. Um, it's funny that you pointed out. I hadn't specifically noticed, but in part, it's because you played well at Mudgee as well. So I don't think that you were in that place of psychological adversity to see whether or not the resilience needed to kick in, if that makes sense.
Yep,
With the exception, looking back on it through this lens, of probably getting to the 18th tee on day two after having wiped 16 and 17.
yep.
Um, now, would have been
I had to work
interesting.
very hard on
I
mindset
can I can
over
imagine
those 2 holes.
because it also was one of those things which we talked about that you face adversity sometimes in golf because you deserve it, and you face it sometimes when you don't.
Yeah,
And
and
I
I
think there
don't
was
feel like I really
yeah,
deserve to be
yeah,
where I
yeah,
was in 16
yeah,
and 17 at
yeah.
Mudgee on that second day. Like
You
I
had some
don't
bad luck.
feel as though
Yeah,
I
you
did a
had
lot
some bad
wrong.
luck. You hit pretty good shots. I mean, the issue on 16 is that you didn't know the course and you didn't really understand how much that hazard cut in on the corner.
Yeah.
17 was just one of those things. There's a tree, a very big tree, right next to a narrow green that was a catcher's mitt that threw the ball
And
into the
that
bush.
had to have been, if it wasn't the worst kick I've ever got off a tree, it
It
would be
was
in the
bad.
finals.
It was
Like
bad. It
it
was
was
very
bad.
bad. Yeah, it was bad. So, yeah, I think you in years gone by could have stood on the 18th tee and really thrown your toys out of the pram,
Yep.
which didn't happen. And as a result, you played a pretty good hole and you won the jacket rather than capitulating and allow someone else to come over the top. What probably helped though was Hef also wiped those 2 holes.
Yeah, that's true.
So um, didn't put a lot of pressure on you, but
No, no, I didn't at all.
nevertheless, um, you didn't drop your bundle, which is good. So yeah, no, that's an important one. Absolutely.
Mm. Yeah, so I think that's probably that's a really important, I guess, baseline of how I want to approach golf over the next 12 months, or
Yeah.
not just 12 months, but moving forward. Um, I've found that playing in the comp, actually playing golf, I've struggled with being able to allocate enough time to be able to play golf.
Mm.
So whereas actually going to the driving range or just going and doing some short game work, chipping and putting, I found that to be a lot easier to allocate time to be able to do that. So
It's less
my
time.
yeah, my goal was to play in the comp every second week. So practice one week, play in the comp every second week. Whereas I might drop that comp round to once a month because I still want to be able to get the strokes gain data. So I still want to be able to play, but given the swing changes that I need to make, and to get rid of this snap hook and to get my a bigger shoulder turn and to get back on playing through the downswing, I do think I need to prioritize practice over play, at least for the short to medium term.
I am going to fundamentally disagree with you on this point.
Mm.
Um, mm,
What reasoning? Give me
so
your reasoning.
let me think this through. I don't disagree with a specific short-term strategy that says there's a couple of things that I really want to work on, um, technique-wise, swing-wise, whatever the case may be, and but give it a time limit. And I don't reckon that time limit should be much more than about 4 weeks, personally. I don't think there is any substitute for competitive golf when it comes to improvement and development. And I think, particularly when you are working on, as we just talked about, the mental side, and improving the resilience piece and all those sorts of things, you can't do it without competitive play.
Yep. Yep.
I could be wrong, but I feel like this is retreating into the comfort zone space.
Um, what I really want to do is maintain consistency with the game. And
Mm-hmm.
given where I'm at with business and with family and the time I've got available, I've really struggled to dedicate half a day. I mean, I,
I
I, I
get that.
can't
I get
I
that.
can't really on Saturday because Saturday kids sport in the morning, and then I
Yeah.
do my own admin for my business in the afternoon. Sunday's just family day, and it's always been family day. So the weekends are a write-off. I can't play golf on the weekend in a comp. I can do, a couple of hours short game, which is what I've allocated on a Saturday afternoon. Then it comes down to during the week and being able to allocate enough time during the week to be able to play golf. Now, again, running a business, I'm a solo operator. Being able to dedicate enough time to competition has been challenging. So how do I get around that? I understand your point, and I agree with
I
you
get it.
to a certain extent, but I'm trying to be realistic in what I can allocate and be meaningful around the time that I allocate.
I get it. I totally get it. I, of all people, understand the time pressures that you're talking about. I mean, the battle that I face, I can't play a midweek comp because the nature of my work, Monday to Friday, would prevent that. Um, Without talking too much about what that is, it would prevent that. And also, as a result of that, I'm, during the school term, not with the rest of the family until
Yep.
weekends because of where
Mm.
school is and where work is.
Yep.
For anyone listening, it's fine. We're a very happy family. We're all together. There's no separation issues or anything like that. That's just where the school is
Yeah.
and where my
Yeah.
work is. So that means I then, generally speaking, I'll head off and potentially work from home on a Friday and then have the weekend with the kids, which feels extremely self-indulgent to then go and squeeze in a 4 or 5 hour round of golf
Mm.
on the Saturday when that's my only kind of 48 hours as a family unit. But it's important for me from as ridiculous as it sounds, but like just from a mental health perspective of having
Yeah,
an outlet and something that's for me.
for sure.
So I know that having that in there helps me be better present in the rest of the time that I'm there. So I actually
Mm.
do try to prioritize it. Um, I do try to take the young bloke with me as caddy as well. So at least there is some father son time involved in that also. But um, I think there are other ways. I think it comes down to the prioritization of what you think that you want to do and how much you want to push it. We're not going to answer it in this episode. I'm mindful of
Mm.
the clock's ticking as well, but
Yeah.
I I want to push you on this one because I'm not sure it's the best strategy for your improvement.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm just looking at my Golf Australia handicap index rounds, and I played 11 comp rounds over the last 12 months.
It's not enough.
So that's, you know, if I can, once a month, I don't know. Yeah, I get
I
it's not,
I don't think
ideally it's not
I don't think it's
enough.
enough. If you want to get to scratch, I don't think it's enough.
Mm. Well, it's interesting. And maybe it's something that I'll have a bit of a chat to David McCollum about, because he was the one who also said that the way he used to approach, leading into retirement those last 2 years was that at lunchtime he'd go to the driving range and hit balls.
Yeah, but I think that's in addition to rather than instead of.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think he was playing a lot of golf at that stage.
Yeah,
Again, something I might clarify, but yeah, I'm not. I don't think he was playing a lot.
yeah. Okay, it's
So
food for thought. Food for
yeah,
thought.
yeah.
We don't
So
have to agree
anyway,
on
look,
everything.
yeah, absolutely, and yeah, I certainly think that for me, it's prioritizing being able to have some contact with golf, and whether that be through practice or play, and what's going to be, the most effective tool that I have in my kit bag to be able to engage with golf
Mm,
and have a bit more consistency with the game.
mm. Okay, we shall see how this pans out.
Mm, mm. So yeah, so then just sort of going down the list a little bit, still, working on short game and putting, getting a bit more focused on aim point, and understanding aim point a bit, or a bit more, I should say. In regards to the mental game, again, there are probably three books that I'd like to go and revisit and study a bit more. The Dr. Bob Rotella books, Golf is Not a Game of Perfect and Make Your Next Shot Your Best Shot. And also
Mm,
would like to go back to the four foundations of golf as well, just to recap. It's been a little
mm,
while. It's been a couple of months since I've looked at that. So by the time I
mm,
get through the
mm.
Dr. Bob Rotella books, it's probably time to go back and revisit that one as well. And then yeah, getting fitted for a driver, fairway, and hybrid sometime, hopefully early in the new year. That
That's
that would
exciting.
I think I'm not going to change my irons. I think the AP2s are working pretty well, but certainly, yeah, making a move to a better driver shaft combination is something that I could. Oh, I think that would bring a fair bit of improvement to my game.
Have you told Santa?
No, 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 I don't think that's a Santa thing.
Shame.
Yeah, yeah,
I
it's
hear Santa does outstanding club fittings, so there's
yeah.
reason why I mentioned that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's probably the focus for next year. And again, haven't put that. Yeah, it's just something I'm thinking about at the moment. It's not something that I've definitely made a decision that that's the way I'm going to go with, but I'll put a bit more thought into it over Christmas and yeah,
Mm.
see where the new year heads.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot. There's a lot to do in 2024. Um, we're getting to the end of the year, which is
Yep.
exciting. We might we might squeeze one more episode in before Christmas,
Yep.
and
Yeah,
then
we
I
can do that
think
next week. Yeah, for sure.
we need to take 5 minutes to think about our lives and figure out what we're going to do. I know we're hoping very much to physically have a catch up over the Christmas New Year period, and potentially have a Hinks v Walker family challenge of some description,
Yes. Yes, that'll be a fun day.
which could be exciting. And ladies and gentlemen, for those listening, the plan at the moment is Andy Walker and I play tee to green, and young Mr. Walker, young Mr. Hinks are responsible for putting on the greens.
Mm.
And we see how
That will
that
be a
pans out. But
very interesting day.
yeah, yeah. Be even more interesting if we did it the other way around, but I think we might be out there for a while.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, let's leave it in the format that we've decided, huh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think for speed of play, we'd probably set it at a maximum of 4 putts per green or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So, look, I think that brings us pretty much to the end of the episode, Andy Walker, unless there's any other topics that you wanted to raise this evening.
No, that's yeah, that was pretty much it.
Excellent. Which means for everybody still listening, this is our longest episode to date, which is exciting.
Mhm.
And what that means is you can show your appreciation through leaving a review on your podcasting service of choice. Clearly, 5 stars. I think it'd be very difficult to justify any reduction in that. in that review.
So is it the longer the episode, the more stars that we get? Is that what we're
Oh,
going
we're
for?
nearing a 6-star episode, I think, if we keep this up. You could also click on the auto download button, assuming that you have one. Um, you could go onto the Missing Links show on Facebook, and you could leave a question. You could comment on a post. You could follow the page. You could do all sorts of things. What else could you do, Andy Walker? You could check out the website, the Missing Links Golf Show.buzzsprout.com, where you'll find all of our episodes. There's many, many things you can do. Pick your favorite, do one, do all. We would appreciate it. And on that note, it's good night from me. And it's good night from him,
Mm, yes. Good evening.
to quote the two Ronnies.
Mm.
It's been a lot of fun. We will talk to you all next episode. Till then, best of luck out on the course.
See you next week.